My name is Jodi Jacobson, and I have chosen to discuss immigrant workers and the concept of Familismo in South America. This is a topic that needs to be understood and talked about and respected by the general population of people in the United States. There are a lot of rewards and sacrifices that are being given by the wonderful people of South America. I would like to start this presentation with a little review of things that we have learned in the class and give a few definitions and show why the topic of immigration is becoming more and more relevant to what we need to understand as American citizens. This slide is just a fun one that I found that depicts the 12 countries that exist in South America. This graph clearly shows the growth and increase of immigrants from South America. You can see that it starts very low back in 1969, and in the year 2015 there were about 11.3 million people, and that number is expected to increase steadily over the next few years. I did a Google search for illegal immigrant statistics, and there were over 7 million sites listed for that topic, and I just chose a few of the websites that were listed. If you would like further information on this topic, you can go to any of these websites and find good information. There are more graphs, there are statistics and articles that can further explain the topic. This is the official definition of an illegal immigrant as given by the United States Department of Homeland Security. This is the official definition. Familismo is a term that we are becoming very familiar with the class. It shows an important priority being placed on families, and we have learned that the families are not just immediate families. It can cross multi-generations, and often these families all live together and have a society of a type that live within the homes. It's good to know and to remember that the Latino population is very traditional. Family comes first. They have strong cultural values. Knowing the terms of machismo and marianismo are very helpful. Knowing the way that the people acculturate to the new country is helpful. And we need to remember that this is a collectivist society. They have a high priority for families versus the individualistic cultural of the United States. In my own personal life and experience, I've read a lot of textbooks and I see the statistics and do a lot of studying, but for me, the way to make a story come alive, or for me to understand, it helps to hear a real life experience or to see pictures of the real situation. I grasp a concept better that way. So that is why I have chosen to present this topic in a different form I will be sharing pictures with you, as well as an interview with a friend that is here in this very situation of being an illegal immigrant and trying to support his family on both sides of the border. So it is my hope that you will have a better understanding and a better picture of what this situation is really like in South America and what it really means to be an immigrant. I have a daughter that served an LDS mission in Arequipa, Peru, and she would send pictures home of things that she had encountered while she was on her mission. And I have asked Megan to share what is happening in some of the pictures. So this is Megan.
Okay, so the first picture is of the kitchen. This was our pensionista. She basically cooked and cleaned for us. And the kitchen was very small. It had dirt floors, but there was a small working oven. It was really old. And then the next picture is of the bathroom. It was outside, so you would walk outside to go into the bathroom, and it just had a small toilet, and then the shower was right next to it. All it was a small pipe that had a little heater attached to it, and so you had to be careful not to touch it or you'd get electrocuted. And then the door was just like a tin roof kind of that only went about halfway up. And if things, as you can see, there were windows that are broken that don't really get fixed or anything, and they just stay like that. So we'd have to cover those up. And then basically most of the exterior around the houses were just bricks. So this first picture is the outside of the house. You go through that and then you'd walk into another outside with the rooms basically in a circle. And as you can see, they don't really care about the outside of their house. Most of them are like this with the graffiti, and they're just brick, basically like a fence. This house that we lived in was actually considered pretty wealthy because, as you can see, they have rooms and like a laundry place. And where we lived, they had a washer, not a dryer, so we would still hang our clothes. But most people couldn't afford a washer and would do it by hand. And so then in this circle there's also a bathroom, and then the kitchen's next door to that, and then the bedroom. Where most houses, like other homes I lived in, we would live in basically a garage. So this first picture is the bedroom to the first house. It's actually a really nice house. As you can see, poverty there is pretty bad because this one actually has floors. You can't see pictured, but the door actually has a small crack, so if it was really windy, we'd have to put a towel under it so that the dust wouldn't blow in. But the house that we were living in that's pictured here was a pretty wealthy house. Most other ones had dirt floors and sometimes didn't even have real doors. And then the next picture just shows a typical street. It kind of looks like construction and like they're doing things, but that's actually a finished street and how most of the homes look.
Thank you, Megan. This is actually one of my favorite pictures that Megan sent home. This is the way I wanted to envision her spending her mission. These women were dressed very beautifully, and they were holding a baby goat that was dressed really cute. And this picture was taken in a square that was for tourism, and it had beautiful cathedral buildings all around them. But unfortunately, this was not the case in most of the area of Arequipa. So we're now going to tell you the real life story of Alex. Due to fears of retribution for telling his story, Alex chose to decline the opportunity of being interviewed. This is an important story to tell, and people need to understand what is happening with these wonderful people. So I chose to interview a close acquaintance of Alex's for this presentation. We have chosen to use the name Alex as an alias for our friend, and hope this gives a clearer vision of the situation faced by immigrants that are trying to support two families on both sides of the border. So this is Douglas, and he is a close acquaintance of Alex. And so I've asked him to tell us about Alex, tell us how long he's been in the United States, how long he's been married, how many children he has, and what kind of work he does.
All right, thank you. So Alex has lived in the United States for about 10 years, most of the time in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. He's also spent some time in Seattle, and he currently lives in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. He has been married for about 3 years now. He has one daughter, and he works for a remodeling company.
So is he originally from Mexico?
Yes, he's originally from Durango, Mexico.
Okay. So in this question, I was asking how Alex was the lucky one to inherit the responsibility of providing for both families. And Douglas isn't quite sure about it, but he has a pretty good idea, and he's going to share his opinion on the situation for this question.
So Alex hasn't told me a lot of details about this, but what I do know is he's one of the few members of his family that's been able to come to the United States. His parents still live in Mexico along with several of his brothers. Out of the brothers that were able to make it to the United States, his other brothers have had a few just run into several problems, being able to hold steady jobs, but Alex has been the one that's been the most responsible just growing up, and so he now has the best opportunity now. He's able to work along with his wife, and so he's in the best position to be able to help provide for his family back home.
This question is asking what Alex's hopes and dreams are for his family in Mexico.
So his short-term hopes and dreams, or his goal, is to be able to help provide for his parents. They're getting older and they're not able to provide for themselves in Mexico anymore. So that's his short term. I know at the least he would like the rest of his brothers, and he's got some nieces and cousins that he'd like to be able to come to the United States as well. That would be best case for his family to be able to come here, but I guess at the very least he would like the opportunity to be able to go visit. He hasn't been able to go back to Mexico since he originally came to the U.S. about 10 years ago.
Do you know why?
His legal status makes it so that if he crosses back into Mexico, it would be unlikely for him to be able to get back into the United States.
Does he have any plans for becoming a legal citizen?
Yes, him and his wife are both working towards getting his citizenship. He's currently on the path to do that. They've been working with several immigration lawyers. He's also been paying taxes for several years. He's actually registered with the IRS to have a tax identification number, so even though he's not legal, he is paying his taxes. He's doing everything he can to become a legal citizen.
Okay. Next, I asked for some specific pros and cons of being in this position.
Alright, so the definite pros are, as I mentioned before, he's able to help send some money back to his parents and the rest of his family to help provide for them, so they're not living in absolute poverty in Mexico anymore. Definitely he's able to find work. The nice thing about being in the U.S. is if you're like Alex and you're able to, he can build almost anything, he just has to look at it a few times and he can get to work, so he can always find some jobs to make some money that way, whereas in Mexico he wouldn't have that same opportunity. Some of the cons is he's not able to see his family except for, Skyping is the closest he's been able to come to seeing his family in the past 10 years.
That would be really hard for me. So I would imagine that this would put some strain on his marriage and his family here. But I also feel like there would be a lot of respect and love for what Alex is doing for his family. And so next I asked Doug if he knows any specifics about how his family feels about what Alex is doing.
Definitely. So yeah, there are strains to doing this as well. For one, him and his wife, they both work full time to care for. They have one daughter, and they both have to work full time to be able to provide for her. His wife's mother does a lot of the babysitting, and that way they're able to save some money. Even with doing that, they have been able to. They have had to cut back on how much they've been able to send there, simply having to take care of their daughter and also pay the legal fees to try and help him become a legal citizen. His family back in Mexico is very grateful. He's been able to help them more than he ever could have if he had stayed there.
And finally, this is a neat story that I was told about the way that Alex's family here has helped him be apart from his family in Mexico.
Definitely. So a recent situation that Alex has had is also illustrates well the difference between cultures here and the culture back in Mexico. Is recently his wife's family was able to help him celebrate New Year's the way he traditionally does, which is quite different than what we might be used to, but a common thing for him and something he hasn't been able to do with his family until just recently is that around New Year's they like to buy a whole pig and roast that up and a little barbecue, and it's an all-day event. So it's not like what we have where we'll just have like a dinner, and some dessert. But it starts at the first of the morning. He went, picked out a pig, took it home, cut it up himself, cooked it, and we all had fajitas and different types of traditional Mexican food. And that was just a great opportunity to be able to share with him, is to see him be able to celebrate one of the holidays and celebrate his traditions with him.
So in conclusion, I would just like to say that yes, statistics and research and textbooks are all very important, and it is all information that we need to know. But I also feel that it is important to have a personal experience and some insight into what these people are experiencing and what they're sacrificing and trying to do for their families on both sides of the border. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you have learned something new. Thank you.